This will be for the con exercise, factor higher degree polynomials. All right, so they want us to factor this completely. So basically we have 4 terms here, and we want to group them into 2 binomials, okay? So since I have a plus sign in the middle, I am going to do these 2 right here and these 2 right here. I'm going to factor those separately, okay? Now, if there were a negative sign here and I did this, that wouldn't quite work. There'd be an extra step, which I'll show you later, okay? But plus sign, when you distribute a plus sign, it changes nothing. So by putting those parentheses, I did not change anything, all right? And now, for the coefficient here is just 1. And you want to choose the x. You want to choose the x with the smallest or lowest exponent, okay? And that gets factored out. So we have x to the 5th and x to the 4th. X to the 4th is the smaller one, so I'm going to factor out x to the 4th. All right, and now dividing x to the 5th divided by x to the 4th, that's just x. Okay, if you didn't see that. X to the 5th divided by x to the 4th. Remember, when it's divided, you subtract the exponent. So it's going to be x to the 5 minus 4, which is just 1, or just x. Okay? Negative x to the 4th divided by x to the 4th is negative 1. All right, if you want to double check in your mind, just distribute x to the 4th times x is x to the 5th. X to the 4th times negative 1 is negative x to the 4th. Moving on here. Look at the coefficients first. We have a 3 and a negative 3. The greatest common factor is a 3. Okay, we have the plus sign, but the greatest common factor for the coefficient is a 3. This has x and this doesn't have an x, so we can't factor out an x. 3x divided by 3 is just x. Negative 3 divided by 3 is negative 1. All right. Want to double check? Distribute. 3 times x is 3x. 3 times negative 1 is negative 3. All right. So far, so good. And now what we have here is a common binomial. We have x minus 1 and x minus 1. So since x to the 4th is multiplied times x minus 1, and positive 3 is multiplied times x minus 1, we can multiply each of these together times x minus 1. So it's going to be x to the 4th plus 3. All right, I use this and this, and that's going to be times x minus 1. Final answer. Okay, if you don't see what I did there, I'll show you with letters. Let's say, for the sake of argument, let's say the x to the 4th was a, and the x minus 1 was b. So we have a times b. We have a plus sign. Let's say the 3 was c, and again, x minus 1 is b, so we have c times b. So if we had ab plus cb, we could factor out the b. All right, we would have b times a plus c. And that's basically what we have here. The x to the 4th is your a, the positive 3 is your c, and the x minus 1 is your b. So we basically have a plus c times b. All right, so that's basically what we did. All right, so you click in the box, x to the 4th plus 3. So use parentheses. All right, I'm going to have to erase this here. X to the 4th plus 3 and x minus 1. All right, right here, parentheses, x to the 4th, hit the right arrow key, plus whoops, plus 3, new parentheses, type x minus 1. Okay, for x to the 4th, the exponent button is right here. But notice I use parentheses. I use parentheses on both of these. All right, notice here we have 3 terms, or a trinomial, so we can't do 2 and 2. All right, so let's look at the coefficients first. We have 2, 4, and 30. Okay, the greatest common factor is 2. And as far as the x's are concerned, you look at the one with the smallest exponent. This is to the 4th, to the 3rd, x squared. So we use x squared. And now we have our parentheses. 2 divided by 2 is 1. X to the 4th divided by x squared is x squared. 4 divided by 2 is 2. X to the 3rd divided by x squared is x. Negative 30 divided by 2 is negative 15. And x squared divided by x squared is just 1. It cancels. All right, so far so good. And now let's see, we can factor this here. We have 2x squared. And what we want here is 2 numbers that multiply to negative 15 and add to positive 2. All right, let's write out the factors for negative 15. All right, we can stop when we find a pair that adds to positive 2. Negative 15, let's see, 3 times negative 5. And we have 5 times negative 3. And these 2 right here are going to add to 2. So I can keep these right here. All right, in order to get x squared, we're going to have to do x times x. So that's our starting point. X times x will give you x squared. And for the 5 and the negative 3, those are going to go inside the parentheses. The order doesn't matter. So I'll do plus 5 here and negative 3 right here. That's it. Final answer. All right, if you want to double check what you just did, you can unpack this. X times x is x squared. Do the inner outer. Positive 5x minus 3x is positive 2x. And then do the last. 5 times negative 3 is negative 15. All right, so just click in the box. Type 2x. Oh, not the exponent button yet. Okay, hold on a sec. 2x exponent button squared. Hit the right arrow key. Parentheses, x plus 5. Right arrow key, parentheses, x minus 3. All right, you don't have to close the parentheses. It does that part for you. Just make sure your answer is correct. All right, here we have 2 things to factor here. X squared minus 4. All right, so if you want to factor this here, you can rewrite this as x squared, and since there's no x, you could just write plus 0x minus 4. All right, and what we're going to do here is look for 2 numbers that multiply to negative 4 and add to 0. All right, so if you write out the factors for negative 4, you have negative 2 times 2. And that right there, if you added those, they're going to add to 0. Okay, so this right here, we have our 2 sets of parentheses. All right, in order to get x squared, you have to do x times x. And then for the negative 2 and the positive 2, you just write it here, negative 2 and positive 2. If you want to double check, x times x is x squared. Inner outer, negative 2x plus 2x is 0. And the last is negative 2 times positive 2. That's negative 4. All right, so this right here are those 2 terms. And now this one right here, 2 numbers that multiply to 9 and add to 6. Let's write out the factors for 9. We have 3 times 3, and those two add to 6. All right, so again, 2 sets of parentheses. In order to get x squared, it's going to be x times x, and 3 and 3 go in the parentheses, plus 3 and plus 3. Now, this is the answer, but you don't need to type this twice. You can just cross one off and make it x plus 3 squared. Okay, so this right here is your answer. All right, so one quick thing here, one quick formula. X squared minus 4. There's actually a formula for this. I like doing it this way better, but there's a formula for this. If you have a squared minus b squared, that is going to equal a minus b times a plus b. Okay, so in this case, a squared is x squared, so the a equals x. And b squared is 4, so b equals 2. You take the square root, b equals 2. And you end up having a minus b, or x minus 2. And then a plus b, or x plus 2. So that's using the formula, and that's what we got anyway for that first part. So same thing if you use the formula. I like to do it this way, but some people like to remember the formula. Anyhow, this is what we're putting in the box. Parentheses x minus 2. Hit the right arrow key, parentheses again, x plus 2. Hit the right arrow key, parentheses again, x plus 3. And then go outside the parentheses and make it squared. Okay, I'm going to have to erase this mess. I'm going to go outside the parentheses for the exponent button and make it squared. Okay, so that's my final answer. All right, 4 terms. Again, I'm going to make it 2 and 2. All right, so for the coefficient, we have a 1 and a 5. So the coefficient is just 1. You don't have to write 1 in front of an x. Smallest exponent, x to the 4th, x to the 3rd, that's going to be x to the 3rd. X to the 4th divided by x to the 3rd is x. 5 divided by 1 is positive 5. X to the 3rd divided by x to the 3rd cancels. Keep the plus sign. Between 4 and 20, the greatest common factor is 4. And this one does not have an x, so we can't pull out an x. 4x divided by 4 is x. 20 divided by 4 is positive 5. All right. So now each of these terms is going to be times x plus 5. So you can factor out the x plus 5. And then that's going to be times x to the 3rd plus 4. And that's it. The order doesn't matter. These are just multiplied. So if you put this binomial first, that's fine. All right, so parentheses x, hit the exponent button to the 3rd, right arrow key plus 4. Click the right arrow key, parentheses again, x plus 5. All right, see, I wrote it in a different order, but it doesn't matter. All right, for the sake of argument, let's say the positive 4x was a negative 4x. You can use parentheses like we just did, but make sure you enclose the negative sign in the parentheses and put a plus sign outside. Okay, so it would be plus negative 4x and plus positive 20. So if there's ever a negative sign here, make sure you enclose that in the parentheses and just put a plus sign in between the two parentheses. That's all you have to do.